Hi everybody, it's lovely to see you. First of all, thank you ever so much for joining us and watching this class, and also thank you for purchasing the Sunnyside collection from Two Red Robins, which is just glorious and just what we need this time of year, isn't it? We're coming out of that winter, going into spring, hopefully. Yeah, lovely collection. So I've got a couple of demos that I want to go through with you. And we're going to be using these dies here for the first one, which is fabulous. So I love this. You've got your image background that you can download and print off, which is fabulous. The artwork's just stunning. Then you've got these two pieces, which then create your layers. So they've been taken from that background paper, or the background paper's been designed around this, whichever way it went. So you can see how you can start to build this up. But the really exciting dies in this collection, I think, are these wibbly wobbly lines. And I call them wibbly wobbly lines because I don't have another word for them. And they are wibbly wobbly lines. And what's great about these is you can use these to cut into your scene. So it may be that you want to put a cottage at the top of the path. Whereas if you, let me just show you what I mean. So if I've got a cottage and I just stick it there, it looks okay, but it's just a bit stuck there. It's almost like it's floating. Whereas if you took it in to your picture, it looks like it's part of that scene, which is super cool. So we're going to focus on these dies for the beginning, for the first demo, and then we'll move into some others as we go along. So I've made myself a card blank with some of our construction weight acetate, and I didn't have my scoreboard with me at home, so I used our Craftmaster knife, or craft knife, and just very gently cut into the top layer of that acetate. So it's kind of scoring it, but I found it gave me a better finish. You've just got to do it really gently because you don't want to cut right through, obviously, but it is really heavyweight stuff, so you should be fine. Then when I downloaded one of the piece of the artwork, you get two on an A4 sheet with a gap in between them. So what I've done is use that white area that's around it and just trimmed it out with probably, I would say, probably about a 7mm border all the way around the edge. So this is going to be my starting point. So let's stick this down with some red liner tape. It's not very often I use red liner tape because I'm not very good at getting the backing off. It drives me a little bit crazy. But there are times when you need to use it. And this is probably one of those times because we're sticking something onto construction weight acetate. There's no fibres in the acetate because it's plastic for the glue to soak into and grab. So I will use something like red liner tape on this occasion. So to do that, I'm just going to burnish down the edge like this. And I'm going to pull this up and then I'm just going to crease it there. So I've got like a little tab, because as I've said many times, I'm good at getting things straight, but not necessarily first time. So I'm very aware of that. So I'm going to do it the easy way around. Right, so let's do this. I'm going to hold my tabs up out of the way like that. And then I'm going to position this in place. And what I'm looking at is the distance from the bottom edge to the bottom of the acetate, and the left and the right hand side. And as long as I get those right, the rest, she says, should follow. There we go. So we've got that piece there, and we've now got that on our card blank, which is fabulous. Right, so the next thing I've done is I took another one of the images and cropped it right down to the edge. And then I used the dies. So I took, let me show you which dies I used in case you want to replicate this exactly. So I used this die, I think. Did I? No, other one, this one. I used this longer one, I think, like that. No, I didn't use that one either. It was probably this one. There we go, that's the one. So I've taken it over the edge, which I don't do very often, but I have done in this case because I wanted to be able to lift the whole thing, because I want the cottage hanging over the edge. So with one of the little cottages, what I've done is I've cut it down because it was too big to go the full width. I didn't want a smaller one because it wasn't far enough back to be that small. So I've just taken one of them and just cut a little bit off. So what I did was I cut into the card, tucked that in first, then trimmed off the rest of the cottage. Rather than cutting it and it not being quite right, I positioned it first. So that's a little tip for you there. So what I'm going to do is just put some glue on the bottom edge of this cottage. So I'm going to stick this down first, and then I'm going to put 3D foam on the back. So I'm going to get all my little pieces stuck down. So I'm using my Pinflair bookbinding glue this time. You'll find that on our website. Great glue. And really good if you're working on something that's been quite heavily printed, like these background papers, so that you've got that intensity of colour. You want something that's going to hold that in place. And all I'm going to do is just literally stick it at the bottom. So it gives it's a little bit of movement in it. It's not completely flat. And then if I decide I want to tuck anything else behind that, I haven't glued it down flat. So that's another tip. Right, I've got 2 little pieces of these grasses here. And I want these, done the same thing again. I've cut in. So this is a really good way of showing you. If I just stick that there, it looks like it looks okay, you know, you'd get away with it, but especially on this one, because it's got quite a straight base. If I just tuck, I'm going to put the smaller one at the front like that. So now it looks like it's growing out of the path or out of the, you know, the drive, whatever you're using. So I love these little dies. I think they're really, really clever. And I love the fact that we've included them in this because it's perfect. It's that country cottage. You know, when everything starts to bloom in the spring and all the colour comes back to life, it's a lovely time of year, isn't it? The birds are all singing really, really early in the morning and waking me up, which is quite nice, but sometimes not nice at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're right outside your bedroom window because they're nesting. It's one of those at the moment, but it's lovely, I have to say. And all the little lambs are in the field, which is nice too. So it's lovely around where we live at the moment. Right, so we've got this. Okay, so I've got my little pieces stuck in. I've got my cottage at the top. And now what I'm going to do is put some foam tape on this so I can lift it just slightly off the card so it gives it a little bit more depth and dimension. So let's do that now. I'm using probably a 2mm tape, but depending on how deep you want this to be, it's entirely up to you. I think it depends whether you're posting it really, doesn't it? You know, whether you're going to put it in a box as a gift or whether you're actually putting it in the post. But you can get lots of different foam tapes now on different widths. But I can't be doing with those little squares. They drive me a little bit crazy. Because not only do you have to stick them all down, but you have to get all the backings off as well, which isn't fun. And I haven't got time for that. So we use foam on a roll. I think we sell this on our website too. And then just because I can, I'm going to put a little bit of wet glue on top of my double-sided foam tape, just to give me a little bit of wiggle room in case I need it. And I like the idea of having an acetate card blank. I like the fact that, you know, you're literally just looking at the focus of the image itself. If I'd gone in and matted and layered this with lots of different colours, it would have detracted a little bit from the design. It's a different way of doing it and it would look lovely as a traditional card, but I just thought this was really quite nice because it's clean. So the next thing that I then did was cut out the 2 dies that come with this. So these 2, I'll just bring this back and show you. So you've got these 2 that work perfectly with this, and then these are all your little wibbly wobbly lines. And I made the decision to print 2 and just trim away this top section here. So I left the branches in here. I didn't try and go in and snip that out because, again, it's not necessary. And because I've used Pinflair glue gel, I was in control of the depth of it. So you can see there's a little, it's not very deep at all, but it just lifts that image. It takes it from being completely flat. If I bring one in that's flat, like that, which actually when you put it over the top it gives it dimension because you're placing it directly over, but it just adds a little bit more detail and interest at the top, a little bit more depth, which I like. And then this one is going to go over the top. Now I made the decision to glue this down after the cottage because I want the cottage to be just seen in the background. It's like that little You know, sometimes when you wander around country lanes and you'll just see a little track that just goes up and you think, oh, I wonder what's at the end of there. And there's this lovely little thatched cottage just there. I think it's lovely. So that was the decision. I could have done it where we put it behind, but you would have had this little bit left here, but it would have worked. So try both, see which you prefer. But I liked the idea of it being like this little hideaway. I think we could all do with a little idyllic hideaway sometimes, couldn't we? No Wi-Fi, no phone. That would be lovely. Just for a week. And just shut yourself off and do some crafting. I could do that. That sounds like a plan to me. I remember once going up to, I think it was Ambleside we went. And it was like this little old cottage, just like this. This is what it reminded me of. And they still had an eider down on the bed. One of those eider downs. It was properly old-fashioned, and it was just one bedroom, a little bathroom, somewhere to eat your dinner. It was really simple, but there was no Wi-Fi at all. And I was waiting for a really important call off one of the buyers at Create and Craft, even though I was on holiday. And the only place I could get a signal was up a tree. So she rang me and she's like, "Are you all right? You sound really out of breath." I said, "Yeah, I've just climbed a tree." She said, "What are you doing climbing a tree?" I said, "Well, I couldn't get a signal otherwise." So I stood up a tree having a conversation with one of the buyers. I tell you, talk about commitment. It was funny when my husband came out because he couldn't find me. He could hear me, but he couldn't find me. It was very funny. So yeah, that was, if you remember Pippi Longstocking when you were younger, with the red plaits and the denim dungarees, always covered in mud and up to mischief. That was me. Anyway, right, so we've now got our stone walls. So we've got the perspective, we've got the cottage in the background, we've got the little fence coming out, got all the beautiful florals and the trees. And now what we want is a lovely stone wall at the bottom. And I know we've done stone walls before, but for me, these elements are absolutely crucial because it gives you a foreground, which then naturally creates the midground, which then naturally creates the background. And if you're telling a story, having pieces like this are just invaluable. And where we live, we're just on the edge of the Ribble Valley, and it's lovely. It's really, really pretty. The countryside is just beautiful. And you see these stone walls at the side of the road. They're not probably as neat and tidy as these because they've been there for a long, long time. But it's part of the British countryside. And I think, you know, when Two Red Robins bring you reflections and artwork like this, that really is what you see when you're driving through the British countryside, I think it's lovely to have these elements. Even though we've had something similar before, it's different and it's on a smaller scale, which I like. Now, I'd put wet glue on there and then I changed my mind and decided I wanted this one to have a little bit more dimension. And of course you could snip into this, and I'm also allowing it to come to the edge of the card because they've got the acetate here. It's still within those parameters, so it'll still fit in your envelope, but I just thought this was quite nice. And then I also, I bet that's stuck down flat now, isn't it? Let's see. Oh no, we might be able to get it up. I'd also, see, in my wisdom, decided that I might want a little bit of a wall here. Now, I might not get this up now. All well prepped, well designed. And this is what happens with me now as I get older. I design something, I'll put everything in a bag. I'll be like, yeah, I'll remember that. And I come the day after and I have no idea why I did it. So I was going to pop that there, but actually I'm going to pop it behind here. And I'm just going to make sure that edge there, so I've got like this extra little piece here. Then I decided that this was lovely. And I thought this was just a beautiful image. A little mummy with her 3 chicks, all with the beaks open, ready to be fed. Mum's going out, and if you've got any of the worms, we did the worms when we visited the allotment, I think. That would be really cool to put these in. And all I'm doing is going in with my fingers and just curving that. Yes, you can go in with a ball tool if you want real depth and dimension, but for me, I quite like just using my hands and just bending that and forming it. I don't feel the need to go in with a ball tool, but the choice is yours. And you can see now, I mean, that's what I love about Two Red Robins is you might not have a branch down here with the leaves on. It might be up further up, but actually it really works. And then again, that brings this further forward. So I've then got some little bits of foliage that I've snipped off the bottom of one of the trees, so I can extend that out. I've got another little one of the branches here. So the bit that, when I snipped this bit away, I was left with this, which I think is quite nice too. This you could use coming across like that. That would look really good. The thing with this is because it's got a straight edge, you could go in with your scissors because there's lots of detail lines in and make that more ruffled at the top. But I thought, you know, that was a really good one to have either coming across, but we can also stick it behind the brick wall here if we want to, like that, which I quite like. Gives it a little bit more interest. And again, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on here because I still want it to have some movement in it. So I'm just going to press that down like that. Okay, so we've now got these in place. So let's use some pin flare glue gel on this because I've curved it. So let's keep that curve. And just add a little bit. I do find it easier using it out of a syringe. I find it's much more controllable. And we do have the syringes as well. I know Christine has them too, but we do sell Pinflare on our website, which is good because of course we use it for our scan and cut as well, don't we? And then I'm going to press this down to here. Like that. So I've got now this little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more behind her there just to lift her up like that. That's better. And then I'm going to pop a little bit of this just here. So it's covering over the edge of that branch. So for all you know, it could continue. It could be continual like that. And because we've got all the greys and the browns and almost like these mustardy yellowy tones in here, it all works really well together, but I wanted a pop of colour and I wanted to bring in something. So right back here we've got lilacs in here, and I thought, well, you know what, the closest thing I've got is pinks, and it just brings the image to life. It makes the picture pop. It refocuses because you're looking at the whole thing there, which is lovely. But if I just simply go behind here, pull this forward and just tuck that under there like that. Okay, so now I can see that that's too tall. So I'm going to snip all that off and we're just going to use this bit here. There we go, that's better. So we can now pop that behind there. So because I've decoupaged some of this up, I'm just going to stick this with wet glue, with flat glue, like that, and just have that little bit of colour just coming out. I could position another one here, which is rather lovely, and that could then tuck under there. I like that. That also covers up quite a bit of that branch. So now she's just a mum sat on a stone wall feeding the chicks. So think about your composition, and I've said this many times before, but what I do is I cut everything out first. Stephanie's got this skill where she can see what it's going to look like before she even starts sticking it together. I don't have that. So I like to cut everything out, lay it all out in front of me, and then I know I can pick and choose what I want. And that works for me. I find that much, much better for me because I don't have pictures. But whatever works for you. So I've now got a smaller one. So with these, you get different pieces, and I'm going to pop that under there. So we talk about layering and design triangles and drawing the eye across. Now I've got 3 here. It's created that triangle. So you see the top of your card, but this is the bit that you see. So you see the mother with the little chicks, then you see the flowers, then you look further back and you see the cottage and the trees. And that's what I wanted to create. So just think about where you're putting your colour, and that will help draw the eye through. And that is our first little project done. And I think that's a really nice, it's not too big, you know, you're not going too wide. I'll probably put it in a 8x8 envelope or make an envelope. But I just think it's lovely to have things coming off the edges, you know. It's just fabulous. And the little house in the background just looks like part of the background paper. And the little bits of greenery here just look like they're meant to be there. And it's just, I love it. I think it's really, really cute. Right, so that's the first one. Should we do another? Let's do another. Right, let's do something different this time. Let's do our little hanging basket. So if you go onto our website, what we do whenever we release or more often than not, I'm not going to say whenever we do, because not always, but sometimes we release web exclusives. So there's something that can work with the collection. It doesn't look, if you don't buy the web collection, it doesn't look like anything's missing from the main collection, but it can absolutely enhance it. So we try to do that as often as we can. But we also do different colours of reflections. So these are the 3 colours that you get as standard free. And then we also put other colourways on, because just by changing the colour of something can completely change the look and feel of it. And you know that yourself, you know, you might have a carpet that's quite florally or quite patterned, and you pull one colour out of that carpet and you match everything else around it, your cushions and your curtains, etc., etc. You then change that one colour to something else and it looks like a completely different room. Well, it's exactly the same when you're doing your cards. So it's you know, yes, we've given you the original colourways, but there will be plenty of options for you as well, which is good. And I like that. I like the fact that we do that, because that just gives me more versatility and it makes me keep my collection out on my desk a little bit longer too. So I've taken the largest of the hanging baskets and I've got one full one, and then on the second one, I've just cut away this top bit, this bit at the back, this back piece that looks like it's the inside of the basket. And I'm just going to put this on with some glue gel, and I've just curved it slightly so it looks more dimensional. So if I take that away, that looks good. If I put that on, it looks even better because it looks more dimensional. And this would be one that you would use either one of our card stands behind. The dies, I know our lovely Hannah had those on a couple of weeks ago. Or you can use your construction weight acetate to create a little stand. So I'm just going to put glue gel around here, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put quite a lot around here, because then I can just push my flowers in so it looks like it's meant to be there. So we've got our little basket there like that. I also like this bit, so you could have just this, but I'm also going to stick this onto here as well, because I like the idea of having even more depth and dimension. I'm going to keep that a little bit flatter, so I'm going to use my wet glue. So it's not going to be anything that I'm going to tuck anything into, but it just gives it another layer. And even if you stick it on flat, when you see this in real life, it just gives it a little bit more detail. Okay, so we've got our 3 little layers there. So the next thing we're going to do is just glue my little hangers together. And I'm going to do this now rather than at the end, because I'm then not negotiating around all the flowers. I'm doing this bit first. So if I take these 2, I'm trying to think the best way to show you how to do this. This is probably the easiest way to do it. Put a little bit of glue on that little hanger at the top, and you might want to cut another one of these out. So maybe you want to cut one out of just a dark blue card, just to strengthen it a little bit. I wouldn't even try getting it through a construction weight acetate because it's too fine a dye, but you could absolutely stick a couple of these together. I'm just going to stick that on there. So I'm just creating a little cross at the top, and I'm just going to line that up like that. And then I'm going to bring my basket in quickly and just make sure that that's wide enough. So now, because I've used wet glue, I can just lengthen that or just angle it a little bit more. And it's all little things like this that you just play around with, but I like the idea of having the hanging basket. Right, so I'm happy now. I'm going to centralise this a little bit more so that it's in the middle. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here. And I'm going to position that like that. So what I'm going to do is use this line on my glass mat and just make sure that that's central there. That's it. And then I can snip away any extra chain that's hanging out over the edges. I love doing cards like this. It's nice to do something different than your average 6x6, 7x7, 8x8. They're lovely. And especially if you've got things like nesting dies, they're great because you can build up your layers. But I do have to say, I do love doing stuff like this. And then we've even got the little hanger at the top, and we've given you that in 2 different sizes. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on there, and that's going to hang like that. We have one of these very similar the front of our house to this, and it's just screwed to a wall, to a cream wall. And one day I was sat, when we just got our dog, actually, no, it must have been, I don't know, a couple of years ago, a couple of years old, I think, and he sat on the settee with me, and this snail just crawls all the way up to this hanging basket, went round the top of it, and then came all the way back down, and Pip just sat there for at least an hour and a half just watching this, and he never took his eyes off it, just watching it like that. And of course the snail's really slow, so he's like, just couldn't take his eyes off, because he knew it was something moving, but he couldn't see what it was. It was very funny. Bless him, little man. So I've now got my little birds that are going to sit in this basket. And again, I know I've got a tree branch here, and you probably won't get a tree branch on the front of a hanging basket, but my goodness me, it works, doesn't it? It's fabulous. I love it. I think it's so clever. So we've also got our flowers here. So I've got my lovely lilies, and lilies are one of my favourite flowers. If I'm ever going home for like a week at a time, which doesn't happen very often, but if I ever am, I always go and buy myself some luxury lilies, put them in a vase, and as you open the bedroom door in the morning, you can smell them right throughout the house. I know they're not very good with some pets, or they like cats, but yeah, it's just, I love the smell of lilies. They are a beautiful flower. So all I'm doing again is just curving these. And in something like this one here, you've got 3 different sizes within that die. So you've got lots of scope. And I like the fact that we do that. I love the fact that we give you these little options of having different sizes, because I'm used to, I think probably because I'm used to having different sizes with the Scan and Cut. I like it when we do dies that give you these extras, because if you've just got 3 large ones, you're kind of limited and you're snipping into it. Whereas if you've got different sizes, that's great, because, you know, you can just go ahead and build your bouquets, which is fab. So I've got my peaches, I've got my pinks, and I've got my blues. And we do these in all these in different colourways. There's a beautiful fuchsia as well. If you haven't checked out the web exclusives, the fuchsia's lovely. And the ivy's nice too. And then they've got little teeny tiny bumblebees. I was a bit gutted that we didn't have the bumblebees on the TV show, but you can get them on the website. Right, let's have a think about how we're going to do this. So do we put our flowers in first? Do we put the bird in first? Let's see how we're just going to position this. So I'm going to start with this lily here. And because I've got this branch, I can have it kind of coming like that across. So what I'm not trying to do is tuck things into this. I've created that depth, but I'm not worried about tucking everything in there, if you like. And then I could have the other lily just growing up like that. So then when I put my bird on top, I've got some orange there and I've got some over here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So let's stick that down on there. Let's just do it. Normally I'll lay it all out. So I have this really bad habit of laying everything out, going, yep, love it, perfect, take a photograph, lovely, move everything, put it back together completely differently. But you know what? It's just trying different things, isn't it? And I like that. I like the fact that we've got the freedom to do that. I'm just going to snip that bottom bit of that stem off there, because if anything's going to stick out, it's going to be that. And then I'm going to put some glue gel behind here. Now I'm just putting glue gel where it touches the basket. So this is still going to have movement like that. And because I've shaped it, it will hold its form slightly, so you can see it starting to build. I'm then going to put the large blue one in the middle. Now, you could tuck it behind if you wanted to. I'm going to snip off a little bit of this at the bottom so that I can tuck it into the basket. Because remember, when we put this layer on here, I put quite a lot of glue gel behind there. And I find that easier to put my glue down first, and then I can just push my florals into there, which is looking rather lovely. And then I could have this one just trailing down there, or I could have this one over here. And I always used to think I needed a plan. And I don't need a plan. I just need to play around with the different shapes. And I like that. I like that freedom. And it used to drive me crazy because I'd have a plan and it never turned out that way. And then I'd be like, well, that's not what you were supposed to be making. But then I had a word with myself and said, well, who says? It's your card. You're designing it. You make it your way. So now it doesn't worry me when I just go a little bit off-piste, because for me, that's what being creative is all about. And I do find a lot that, you know, if you start off with an idea and you allow that idea to develop rather than restricting yourself and going, no, I've got to make it this way, then you'll end up with a much nicer project because it just flows a little bit better. I'm just going to leave those blues for a minute while I just position this here, because I know I might need to snip into that a little bit. So I'm going to pop the pinks behind here. So that's going to go on the back like that. So I'm just going to put some wet glue, and you could always cut another basket. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but it's not far off. So you'd be able to cover over all the workings on the back, which just gives you another surface to be able to work with. So flat glue on there, just turned it over to make sure I'm happy with the positioning, and then putting a little bit of pressure on there. So we're now starting to build now, which is nice. I'm going to pop a little pink one just in there. So I might tuck that inside like so. So just going behind that flower there. And then I might just I'm going to pop my bird in place now and see where that's going to go. And then that pink can go over there perfectly like that. Okay, happy with that. So I'm just going to pull that out a little bit and straighten it up a little bit. And now we're going to put our bird on here. Now the weak part here is there just across her legs. So if you want to do another layer behind, maybe you do it in white and create a slight drop shadow, that's your weak point there. So make sure that that's just stabilized. And then I'm going to tuck that in here. So let's get some glue gel on the back of here. I'm just going to shape those little birds a little bit more, just because I can. And they've got these lovely little round fluffy tummies, so let's make the most of them. Right, so let's get some glue gel on here and on these little chicks and on Mum or Dad, could be Dad. So I'm going to pop that onto there like that, and I'm just going to lift that lily and see if I can just tuck that branch. Go on, you know you want to. There you go, underneath there. That's nice. And how lovely is this? You know, if you make and sell your cards, to have something like this, that you can make cards that are so different to the cards that, you know, you normally see at craft fairs. This is just lovely, I think. And this is what will set your stand apart from everybody else's, having these, you know, different freestanding cards, you know, just bringing that element back through, just doing something a little bit different. And it's also, I think, much more fun to craft because you're telling a story. I'm just going to see, I just want those blues at the back just to peep through a little bit. And I think, you know, I say this all the time, when you're crafting and telling a story, it's much easier to craft because your positioning kind of follows the story, doesn't it? You know, we've got this lovely basket of flowers that someone's hung on the wall, maybe of that cottage that we saw in the first demonstration. And we're filling it with our beautiful florals and it's all blossoming. And then one day this little family of birds come down and just land on a little branch that's fallen and just start to feed the chicks, and you can hear the bird song, and it's, yeah, just lovely. Sun shining outside. Can't ask for much more than that. And then I snipped a couple of leaves off here. So I'm just going to pop them back underneath there. So don't think that just because the leaves are in a certain position here, You can't move them because you can. Just make sure that they look like they're grounded, they're not floating in midair. And then you've got a lovely little hanging basket. Look at that. That once you've strengthened those little chains will look fabulous. I'm going to turn it back round and show you like that. I'm just going to see if I've got a piece of board anywhere that I can show you a little bit clearer. Let's have a look. Maybe. Yep, there we go. So you've now got your little hanging basket. Now you could, if you strengthened that chain, hang that in your window, and that would be lovely, wouldn't it? Just hung. It is lovely. You could actually use proper chain if you wanted to. Go to the hardware and just, you probably have to stitch it onto your card, I would have thought. But yeah, just lovely and something a little bit different. So we've gone from our traditional rectangular card with our scene, with exactly the same collection, the same birds, similar florals. Yes, we've added some orange and blues in, but just, yeah, lovely. And I love the fact that you've got that creativity. It's not just you cut it out, you stick it together, that's it. You've got that space, that oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me, the word will come to me. That ability to be creative. So it's not, this is a box, you cut it out, you stick it together, that's what it makes. You're able to take these and do lots and lots of different things with them. And I like that. I like the fact that when you're buying something, and listen, dies are an investment. They're tools. If you look after them, they will last you a lifetime. And it's one of those things that, you know, it is absolutely an investment. You look at some of the collections or some of the USBs or whatever it is you're buying, and you have to sit there and think, right, how many times am I going to use it? Who am I going to use it for? Is it versatile enough to be able to do home decor with, to do scrapbooking with, maybe add into some mixed media? Can I make little hangers with it? You know, all those different things. And if you buy a collection from Two Red Robins, I would say 99.9% of the time, all that is covered because it's been designed by crafters. And we get what we hope that what we want to do with it will also tie in with what you want to do with it. So it's lovely to be able to do that, I think. And it's, you know, it's not just a craft company that's churning stuff out for the sake of it. We all craft, which is lovely. Right, so I'm going back to my background now. And this is the one that comes with the trees. It comes with the main bundle. And then we've also got these fabulous thatched cottages, which I just love. I love the fact it's got that Tudor detail on it. And it looks like you could just walk through that front door, and the blues in the front door match the blues in the background, and everything's been thought through. And I know one of the web exclusive dies is this door, which would be a fabulous, fabulous card. And you imagine this for Christmas, you get that die for Christmas, you get, you put snow on the thatch and frost on the ground, and it would look absolutely fabulous. So it is, you know, trans-seasonal as well, which I like. So this is a little bit quirky because I am, hence the name of my brand, Quirky Bird. And I just started playing around. I thought, right, let's see if we start to layer different things, what it looks like. Because you can do it with some products and it looks great. You can do it with some products and it just looks bizarre. So I thought, you know what, let's try it. So I've got the scene and I've got my cottage. And then I've also got this fabulous, now it's not really a hanging basket. It's more like, I'm going to call it a trough. Because when I used to go and muck out loads of horses on a Saturday morning, like early Saturday morning, we'd have things like this in their stables full of straw. So I'm going to think that it's a bit like that. And then I'm just going to start to position and work out where I want this to be. And I know this looks a little bit unusual, but I thought it was quite cool. I also like the idea of, if I just move this out, I'm going off on a tangent now. But imagine that I've cut, so this one, I just cut this bit away here. So imagine if you've got two like that. I thought that made fabulous butterfly wings. If you wanted to do something for a gents card that wasn't too floral, or it could be a Father's Day card, and you could take something like, or an engagement card, you could have something like that in the middle. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's like butterfly wings, but quite a little bit steampunky, because you've got that wrought iron work in there. I think it's a lovely image, this. Really, really nice. So I thought, right, let's just have a play and see what we come up with. So I've got my scene, got my cottage. I don't need to see much more of this than the top area. I'm not worrying about this bit. I'm just using this as a background scene here. And then I'm going to see what this looks like at the front, because it'll be quite an unusual card, but I thought that was quite nice, because you've got instantly your foreground, your midground, your background. Even though it's all flat, it's instantly created that depth and dimension. And then we've got our wall that can come at the front. And I thought it was just a little bit quirky, so I'm going to go with it. Right, so let's get this stuck down flat first of all. So I'm working about 1 centimetre up from the bottom of that for this one. And I'm just going to use my wet glue like this. So I'm going to position that. So I'm making sure that the bottom of my card is level on my mat, because I don't want a wonky cottage. I don't mind a quirky cottage, but not a wonky cottage. There's a hotel in Oundle, which is near where we stay, called the Talbot, and or near where the studios are rather, and it's really, really, really old, like centuries old, and the staircase is really wonky and the walls are all wonky. It's a fabulous hotel, but it's yeah, it's definitely wonky. But you go in there and you sit there and you think, I wonder how many people have been in this hotel and what their stories were 2 centuries ago. It's that kind of place. Yeah, very, very lovely. Very expensive, I have to say, but nice. Right, so I've also got these tree bits here. So I'm going to build this bit up first and see where we get to. And then I'm going to put my brick wall in place, and then we might have some of these trees coming off in the background as well. We'll see what it looks like when we're done. Right, so for this one, I'm going to use my pin flare glue gel as well, but I'm also going to use some foam tape, because I need this to be a little bit more stable while I work with it. So I'm going to take a strip of foam tape here and another one just above it, and I'm just being aware of where the curves are in the bottom of this cut, like this. And I'm going to take that off, and I'm also going to add a little bit of glue gel on the sides here, so just a little bit there and a little bit across there, just so I've got something to stick my flowers into. And then I'm going to position this down there like that, and I've still got that slight curve even though I've got my foam tape behind it. Just going to wiggle that over a little bit if I can, get that straight. There we go. Right, just a tip as well, when you're using, if you're using the syringe, when you go to put the lid back on, just make sure a little bit of it, and bring this black magnetic board in, a little bit of it is poking out at the top, and then when you put that into your lid, it creates a little plug. So next time you come into it, you can just pull the plug out and then the glue's ready to go. It's all those little tips you pick up over the years of how fabulous, so that, you know, Christine and all those different people that have been in the industry forever. Pick up all these little hints and tips. Right, so if I just put this here, it's going to look quite strange because it's flat at the top. So it works when you're using it just with the rectangle, but for this I want to add a little bit more shape. So all I'm doing now is just going around, and I'm just cutting using those cut lines that are in here. And I'm just going across like this. And I'm just creating a bit of a wibbly wobbly line across here, like so. There we go. So now it doesn't look as sharp on the edge. So let's see what we need to do with these. So this one would be quite nice. Let's see if it works on this side like that, kinda. But I want it to kind of come up there. So we're extending the greenery out here now. And then this one, I think will work probably better on this side. So I'm going to get rid of that little branch there because that's going to get in the way. And I'm going to just position that over there. So now it's kind of creating like this treetop. It looks a little bit like a tree house, doesn't it? And this is I like it, I quite like it. But again, it changes again when you put the wall on the front. That for me is what changes it. It grounds the whole thing then. So you're creating this little picture within this scene. So let's get these trees sat down. And I wasn't too sure when I first started this one. I was like, is it going to work? But actually, I really quite like it. I think it is quirky and it is a bit different. So yeah, I think it's nice. And I'm just, if I'm tucking part of it behind, I'm then seeing where I can bring it over the edge. So it almost covers up that straight edge down there. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get rid of those harsh lines of the edge so that you've then got this curve going on down here. And then the same with this one. So I can see that I can put my glue down here like that. I'm going to tuck that behind there, and then I'm just going to I'm going to take the top of this to there, but this is going to stick a little bit further up. This would be really nice in like a rectangular frame, actually. A little bit quirky. Like that. Right, I'm happy with that now. So I've got that in position, and then I'm going to put my wall just here like this. It's definitely a little bit different, isn't it? But I do quite like it. I like the fact that it's a bit quirky. And then we'll get all our other little bits and pieces on there as well. Right, so let's use these as our grounding element. So we're going to put a little bit of glue behind there. Stick that one over there like that. Just give that a minute to just grab. You could snip into this as well, because if it's anything like the dry stone walls near us, they are desperately in need of rebuilding. I keep saying to my husband, go down and do it, but it's like, no, my back wouldn't take that anymore. I was like, no. It's certainly painstaking, but very clever. I think I'd quite like that, because it's quite, you've got to make things fit, and you've got to make, it's a bit like a puzzle. I think I'd quite like doing that dry stone walling. Might be quite frustrating though as well. Don't know. Never tried it. Might be something I have to try when I retire, maybe. Don't think I'll ever retire, to be fair. I love my job too much. Right, so we've now got these two beautiful little birds here. Now they could go behind the brick wall, or they can pop inside here. And I think I'm going to let them snuggle down in there. Look at that. And I'm going to push them down quite far, because otherwise it looks like they're floating a little bit. So I'm going to just push them in and have them nestled in there rather than kind of stuck out. That's quite nice like that. That looks a bit better. And then all I've done, actually, I'm just going to, I'm not happy with that. I'm going to trim a little bit off that. It's got to be right. It drives me crazy if it's not. And I'll know it. That's better. So they're now snuggling down inside. I'll just get rid of that little shoot there. And I'm going to pop, there we go, that's better. Right, so now I've got this little layer. So all I did here was cut away, just cut the bird away like that so that I can have it a little bit more dimensional. Now, when you're doing this, what you want to do is make sure that this bottom edge is stuck flat and then the rest of it's curved, because otherwise, if you stick it like that with foam pads, it looks like she's got, oh, I don't know, it just doesn't look quite right. So I'm going to pop wet glue down at the bottom like so, and then I'm going to do a layer of that there, and I'm going to tuck that inside like that. Okay. And then I'm going to, with this one, I've just snipped away. So I got rid of this wing here, and then I just snipped around here like that, which again just brings it slightly forward, makes it a little bit more interesting. And because there's a lot going on, you want something to stand out. So this is the bit that's going to stand out. So we've now got our wet glue on the bottom, just like we did with the other one. And then that on there. So I'm just going to press that down nice and firmly. Just hold that in place while it just grabs. And it does grab really quickly. It gives you a little bit of wiggle room, this Pinflair bookbinding glue, but it's not too long that you're having to keep hold of it and mess about with it. Right, let's have a look what else we've got. So we've got some flowers here now. Because I've got this pink here, I'm really funny about my pinks. This is what I would call like an orangey pink, and this is more of a blue-based pink. And normally I wouldn't put the two together, but in nature it works. So I'm just going to tuck those into there like that. So we've got them over here, or we had them over here, but we've tucked it in so you can't see them. So I'm now going to bring this over here. So I've got that pink going through here. I'm going to add some of this brighter pink. So I haven't gone for any of the alternative colourways, not because I don't love them, because I do, but just because I wanted to show you just what you can do with what you've bought rather than buying the other colourways, although they are incredibly good value, I have to say, and it does reinvigorate. It just looks, it's almost like you're buying two different collections just by changing the colour of some of the flowers. It's great. And I love that. I love the fact that we've got that opportunity to be able to do that. Right. Next bit, I think, can come behind there. So we're now we're following this through now. That's a really nice shape. So this one I've pulled over slightly, and then this one has its natural curve. So it's now following that round. I think this is really cool. In fact, I might take this one home and put it in a frame. I like it that much. Be nice in our hallway, this. And then we've got our little pieces sat here. So they can get stuck flat. So all this is still coming forward. I've got another little piece. Let's see where we can pop this. Not sure about that. Let's pop it there, see what happens with that. And I've got some little blue pieces here. See, that's a nice little combination there. Until you try it, you don't know. That's the thing, isn't it? Well, I don't know. Stephanie does. She has pictures. But I do like doing this. And it's funny because when we go down to the studios, one of my favourite things to do when we get there is set up what we call the pack shot. So where you see all the product and all the finished samples, that's what we call the pack shot. And I love doing that because for me, that's my shop window. And because I can see everything, I love doing that bit. And that comes really, really naturally to me because I'm putting that puzzle together. I can see the pieces. So yeah, I love doing that bit. And then you stand back and just go, yeah, do you know what? We did a good job with that. I'm all about giving yourself a pat on the back. Because there's enough people in this world will put you down without doing it to yourself. So I'm going to pop this on here. And I'm going to add some Pinflair glue gel. So this is just growing in front of that dry stone wall. I've got another little piece here, which I'm also going to, let's see where we need. Do we need this? Do we not need it? Let's have a look. I need to bring this blue. So I've got the blue here, I've got the blue in the birds, and I've got the blue there in the window. But I do think that looks nice, just finishing it off there. So I'm going to do it. So rather than just sticking it like that, what I'm doing is wrapping this bit around the back and then using that to just come over here. So I'm going to put glue on top of here and underneath there. So I've got 2 points of contact there. I do think this would look really nice in a frame, I have to say, because it is a little bit different, isn't it? And then I'm going to tuck that right down there like that. So I've got the height coming up here, which is balancing here. I've got this curve following through here. And then we also have, now I've got some more pink ones. Do I need more pink ones? This is where you decide when you're happy with it. You know, people say all the time, well, how do you know when to stop? When you like it. Okay, so if you like it really busy with lots of stuff on it, you go ahead and do that. If you're somebody that likes minimal, You could just use the florals by themselves. You could use the birds by themselves. You could just have the cottage with the sentiment. Everybody crafts differently. Everybody's homes will be different. The way everybody dresses can be slightly different. We all have our own style, and that's good. You just need to learn to own it, because when you own it, that's really cool. So I'm then going to pop a little dragonfly. Where shall we have the dragonfly? Let's have it just nestled on here, I think. Let's pop it on one of the flowers. So you get the dragonfly in with, I can't remember which flower it is, but it's definitely there. I think I might just have it up here. And this is another reason why I love Two Red Robins, because you get all these little extra bits, like the little gatherings and things like that, that just bring it to life. So we've now got our little piece ready to just go into our picture frame. Now, the only thing that's annoying me is this top edge here, because it's dead straight. So I'm going to go in, and I am literally taking my scissors, and I'm just going to get rid of that harsh edge at the top, because that for me is what's throwing it off a little bit. You might like it like that, it's up to you. Like I just said, when you're happy, then you know you've done a good job. There we go, that's a bit better. There we are. So we've got our little scene. Now you imagine that in a picture frame. You could add your little, maybe you've got little snails, maybe you've got the little bumblebees. You could add an extra little bird in here, or an extra couple of little dragonflies. So you've got 3 very different looking projects, but using the same collection. So we go from this one to our little hanging basket. See if we can get all these in shot at once, like that. And then our original card, which was more of our traditional one with that scene on it. So you've got 3 different projects to get you started with your collection. Or if you've already started making with your collection, please share with us what you make. Because as much as we inspire you, we hope, you inspire us as well. And it's lovely to see what different people's style. And that's, you know, that's why Facebook's so good for us with Two Red Robins, because you can go and share on there. So there you go. So that's your projects for this. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you love your Sunnyside collection. And I think, you know, it's a really nice one to slot in with all the others that you've got. Or if it's your first purchase from Two Red Robins, well, welcome. It's going to be a good journey, and I will see you very soon for more education. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.